I love the Iliad, the Odyssey, the Aeneid, and to some degrees, Dante. These stories are all connected, and it's interesting to me to see the nuanced connections, references to Greek mythological terms and places in the Christian New Testament, like Peter's use of the word Tartarus, or in the book of Acts, St. Paul being faced with a woman possessed of a serpentine spirit, which is a reference to the cult of Apollo and the oracle of Delphi, suggesting that this oracle was actually essentially a slave. She had handlers, and she was possessed of a demon, but the demon knew who Paul was because he knew what Christ was, and Paul just casually got annoyed and cast the demon out, and then the woman became worthless to her handlers. It's fascinating stuff. If you watch this channel, you know I find the ancient world absolutely fascinating. The Iliad, I've got multiple translations. Fagel's translation is good. Is one of my favorite stories of all time. There are a few stories I could live in. That's one of them. But I also love the Odyssey. Here's a Lattimore's translation. I've got Fagel's translation. Here's Fagel's. And here's a new translation by Stephen Mitchell. It's a little more accessible to modern audiences, but Fagel's is probably one of the better ones. The controversy over the movie. Setting aside, look, Christopher Nolan is one of my favorite filmmakers, living filmmakers. The Dark Knight trilogy, at least the first two. Interstellar, Inception. Movies that cause you to think and approach the level of actual art compared to so much just rubbish and trash out there in cinema. You take my favorite filmmaker, one of them, and one of my favorite stories, and you think I would just be ecstatic about this movie. But like everyone else, I've got concerns, but I want to set aside the potentially questionable casting for Achilles. I want to set aside the costume designs. I want to set aside what perhaps irks me most so far, and that is the American dialect, accents, and very casual slang-like talk, which to me doesn't seem fitting of a Tolkien movie or a rendition of the Odyssey. And talk about one thing that's been causing controversy: the casting for Helen of Troy. I have a different take on this.
And the Oscar goes to Lupita Nyong'o.
She is, I've seen her in a movie before, I can't remember what it was, and I do remember being struck by thinking, this is a beautiful woman. But that's really not the controversy, is it? The controversy is twofold. One, this is supposed to be the most beautiful woman in the world, the woman whose beauty launched 1,000 ships. And two, let's state the obvious, and I'll be very candid here. She's a black woman. Helen of Troy was not black. So let's cut to the chase. Some people will say that if you have an objection to this casting, you are a fascist, racist, Nazi, yada, 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 yada. There are some racists who have a problem with this casting, but the majority of people who object to it are not really racist, certainly not fascist, and certainly not Nazis. So set that aside for a moment. Another element at play is some people think that, well, they're going to complain that she's only being cast because she's black. This is what did Rush Limbaugh used to say? This is I guess the phrasing now would be she's a DEI hire. Affirmative action hire, as Limbaugh would say. For me, an element is I have an issue with the casting of several of the roles. I don't know that Anne Hathaway is right for Penelope. No offense to her, I don't think she's the greatest actress in a role of this. She played Catwoman. Nolan likes to reuse actors. She played Catwoman. Didn't do it for me. I like Matt Damon. I struggle to see him as Odysseus or Ulysses. Set that aside too. The question I'd like to ask is, can black people play roles traditionally played by white people because those roles or those characters traditionally are from white cultures? Is that ever acceptable? I thought a lot about this. My short understanding is in some situations, yes, it's acceptable. Because I think the factors at play here are good faith, maybe not with this movie, but hypothetically, and I hope with this movie, good faith and a hermeneutic of mutual celebration and participation rather than competition. My issue with characters like this being race swapped is that often it's done by people in Hollywood or the elite academic classes because they have been convinced of this hermeneutic of race struggle, class struggle, where they see every social phenomenon in terms of oppressor and oppressed, of struggle. They would like to take the marginalized groups or the people that they see as the oppressor class and have them gain power over the oppressed class gain power over the oppressor. Too often what that means is if you're a quote-unquote straight, I think all that's made up. Straight, heterosexual, white, Christian, traditionally masculine male, or traditionally feminine female, well then we got to take you down a few pegs and put a transgender person, a homosexual person, a Puerto Rican person, whatever they see, whatever class they see as in the margins, and bring them towards the center, as Derrida would say. And so it almost is never the case. The same people who applaud a black woman portraying Helen of Troy, they often would criticize, and I've seen them do it, when a white male plays a Jewish role or any other race. And that's what people sometimes on the right would point out. It never goes the other way, does it? You can't have Muhammad Ali played by a Korean man. Can't have him played by a Jewish man. Can't have him played by a... You take the point. All right. My take is slightly different. Yes, when people convinced of the extremities, I would say, of a critical race theory, of Marxism, of this general narrative oppressor-oppressed class, seeing all phenomena as a class struggle. Yes, it's often done in bad faith. It's often done to rage bait, knowing full well that they're going to get engagement. It's done to replace or to stick it in the eye of anyone who doesn't fit in with their ideology. But I don't think it has to be like that. So many of the actors who play, let's say in the movie Troy, some of these folks I think were Welsh or, various British actors. They're not actually Greek or descendants of Trojans. When we say white, we're lumping in a lot of different traditional ethnicities and people. Why is it that that isn't a problem for us? It's not racism. It's because the Brits, including the Welsh, or even to some degree the Italians, the Spanish, the Irish, the Americans, anybody in Western civilization are seen as the inheritors of Greco-Roman society. So me, I'm a mutt. I'm part Irish, part Native American Indian, like many people. I've got a lot of stuff going on. But I am the inheritor of Western civilization. It's fragmenting, it's crumbling, but we are the inheritors of a civilization cultural heritage. So I'm not Greek, but I love the Iliad and the Odyssey. I think that I can participate in these things. It is my cultural inheritance. So set aside what I think is the aggressive, deliberate, globalist elite forcing excessive amounts of immigration into England and various parts of the Western world. Set all that aside for a moment. Some people came here, immigrated here, because they were forced to, their ancestors were. Some people came here and they immigrated from different parts of the world, and they did it legitimately. What I think would be the best thing to do, I think that those people should embrace Western culture. I think they should be allowed to embrace Western culture, this cultural heritage. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Denzel Washington played in a movie version of Macbeth.
After him, whose care has gone before to bid us welcome, 'tis a peerless kinsman.
Stars, hide your fires. Let that light see my black and deep desires.
I don't think it was the best version, but the man did a pretty decent job. I didn't like that he had basically an American accent, but he's not Scottish. Macbeth was Scottish. Denzel is not. And yet, what I saw that was not a competition with, I'm just trying to replace white culture. I saw it as a participation in, because he is just as American as I am. I think all Westerners, white, black, anything else, Welsh, Scottish, Irish, Italian, Spanish, should all be remembering our cultural heritage and celebrating it and participating in it. I think we've been robbed of it by the last several generations, and I've seen this decline happening more and more for centuries, but particularly in the last 100 years. I'd say post-World War I, post-World War II. By the time you and I came along, well, we've been robbed. It's time for us to remember, to recover it. And in that way, I think it's fantastic. It is the best possible outcome for people like Denzel Washington or others who are not white to celebrate, participate in our shared cultural heritage that we recover together. I like the operas of Richard Wagner. He's German, and I like a lot of the Germanic myths. But when I would go to see a Wagnerian opera, which is rare, or I watch a recording of it, often you're going to see non-Germanic peoples performing those parts. You're going to have some black folks performing those parts. And as a celebration mutually and participation in, I think that is to be applauded. I don't think it's racist for the movies, The Lord of the Rings, to have basically what seems to me to be an all-white cast. That's not racist. They're not Nazis. They're not fascists. Peter Jackson and Elijah Wood, not racist. I just don't believe it. Not fascists, not Nazis. It makes sense for that time and location and place. It makes sense for a movie about the Odyssey to have an all-white cast, even a cast that looks Greek. That's not necessarily racist and probably isn't. However, I also don't see it as a problem if people in good faith share that cultural heritage of which I think they are mutual, to which they are mutual inheritors. We're being divided 10,000 ways. I don't think that this should be one of them. This is the internet. I know almost no one will agree with me, but I think this is a healthier path forward than most of the stuff I see on here. I don't have time to argue, but I will read most of the comments if you leave them. As always, I hope you know that your life matters no matter what happens, no matter who comes at you or hates you or whatever dark day you have. Hey, you matter. The internet's kind of fake. Remember that, okay? This is all nonsense. Go outside, read a book, contact an old friend, do something real. Remember that your life matters, don't check out early. And as always, know that God loves you, and I thank you for watching. God bless.